Okay, we'll go to the next slide here. It's also a sarcophagus. It's an Asiatic sarcophagus with Klein and portrait of a woman near Melfi, Italy, 165-170 BCE, made of marble. And this is an example of an Eastern sarcophagus because it's from the eastern region of Melfi, Italy, but you can also tell because it has reliefs on all four sides. And the Eastern sarcophagi had reliefs on all four sides because it was in the center of a tomb that you would walk all the way around. And it was made in Asia Minor, but it was made for export to the eastern region of the Roman Empire. So you can see that the reliefs feature these statuesque Greek gods and heroes in these architectural frames, and the woman reclines on a couch or Klein on top of the lid. Only the most expensive sarcophagi had the addition of the lid ornamentation. She originally had a dog with her, but only the paws remain at the left end of the lid, which I am not quite sure if I was able to find that. It might be on the other side of the lid. And then she also has Cupid there as well, and he's on the other side. He holds an upside-down torch. His head is actually missing, I believe, but this is Cupid here. And I believe that's the torch maybe there. He has wings, it looks like. And he's holding that upside-down torch, which is reference to the death of a woman whose beauty rivaled that of his mother, who was Venus, and of Homer's Helen, so Helen of Troy. So when the Cupid holds an upside-down torch, that's what that means. So we'll keep moving. So this is a mummy case of Artem and Doris from Hawara, Egypt, which I believe is also called Fayum, 100 to 120 CE. And it's a portrait in caustic paints on wood. The mummy case stucco with gold leaf. It's 5 feet 7 1/4 inches high. So, you know, that's about how tall a lot of men were back then. So Egypt had always buried its dead, and typically this was done in a sarcophagi or a mummy case. And it was a long-standing tradition in Egypt. Even after Egypt became a Roman province, they still didn't start cremating their dead. And one thing that changed about the Egyptian mummy case under Roman rule was that the painted wood panels picturing the deceased began to replace the traditional mummy portrait mask, which was, basically the portrait masks were replaced with these encaustic wood panels with pictures of the deceased here, done in encaustic paints. And scholars believe many of these painted portraits that were done in encaustic were made while the subject was still alive, and then after death they were cut down to fit the mummy case, because it does actually look like it was kind of haphazardly placed on top of this mummy case. So it really does look like a mixture of Greek and Egyptian styles here. We have the registers and the Egyptian motifs here with a really Greek-looking fellow here. But at this time, this area of Egypt was a Roman province, so it kind of makes sense. So, like I said, many of these portraits were done in a medium of paint called encaustic, which is a technique of mixing colors with hot beeswax and then applying them to the surface of the wood. And it was extremely durable, so as you can see, the portraits are in really great condition. And there is even evidence of a famous female painter that worked in this medium. Pliny the Elder writes about her, and her name was Iea of Cyzicus, I believe. There's a little bit more about that in your book if you want to read about that. But so this slide shows a young woman from Hawara, Egypt, which I believe is Fayum, same area of Egypt. And this is an example of an encaustic painting in the form of a mummy case. She was placed on a mummy case, and it is in excellent condition. And I should also note that encaustic wasn't only done on wood, it was also done on marble as well. One thing about these mummy portraits is that CT or CAT scans were done of the mummy cases and the mummies, associated with the painted portrait on the outside were actually of the same age. So the deceased body and the portrait ages were matching up, which actually tells us that the portrait was probably created for the mummy cases and were not recycled portraits from, say, the house of the deceased. So they are specifically made for the mummy case. Here's another portrait, a mummy portrait of a priest of Serapis from Fayum, Egypt, or Hawara, Egypt. It's the same as Fayum, I believe. 140 to 160 CE, encaustic on wood. About 1 foot 5 inches by 9 inches, pretty close to that anyway. So this piece actually depicts a priest of the Egyptian god Serapis, and the curly hair and beard really emulate the fashion in Rome at the time, but the curly hairstyle is distinctive to images of the followers of Serapis. And this portrait shows the painter's use of the brush and spatula, which is also used in the medium of encaustic, to kind of work with the hot wax and the pigment. It really shows that, you know, this artist was very skilled. It shows a lot of different textures and different uses of light over his skin. You can see some highlights on his nose. And he has a very kind of softly modeled face. And as you can see, there are some wrinkles, some signs of age in this man. So the Fayum mummies enable art historians to actually trace the history of portrait painting from Mount Vesuvius, which erupted in 79 CE, up until this time, 140, 160 CE. So it does create a good record of the Roman painting styles, because the encaustic is very well preserved, and then a lot of the mural paintings from like Pompeii and the cities of Vesuvius are very well preserved. So they've been able to really put together, you know, the different painting styles that span that period of time. And that's going to wrap up the High Empire. I'm actually going to start up the Late Empire in the next video.